I'm doing this with you first.
Hey everyone, welcome to a unique and special episode of The Thoughtful Bro with the very the co-founder of A Mighty Blaze, Jenna Blum, the legend herself. I am so psyched to be the very first interview on her pub day for this amazing book. I can't wait to cut it up today with Jenna. This is going to be the most entertaining hour that you've had all year. And it's been a year so far, I will say that.
Like it's literally the beginning of the year that is jamming.
But it's felt like it's been 3 months. Let me dig into this. Okay, welcome to The Thoughtful Bro, ladies and gentlemen. We are live streaming on A Mighty Blaze on Facebook and YouTube, as always. And The Thoughtful Bro, as you know, is here every Tuesday to talk about what makes great books tick, what makes great authors tick. We are an all-volunteer initiative connecting writers and readers virtually. At A Mighty Blaze, we're never asking for money. If you want to show us the love, just follow us on social media, repost this interview, tell your book-loving friends about us. But if you do want to spend money, oh boy, do I have an idea for you. I would recommend that you spend your hard-earned dollars and cents on something that you will devour like you're eating an ice cream sandwich on a hot day. Something delicious and satisfying, something you try to get through just as fast as you can before it all melts in your hands. Books like Murder Your Darlings by Jenna Blum. We're going to put a link to buy this book in the chat through bookshop.org, where we have a partnership. And if you want to ask Jenna some questions, I recommend that you do. Jenna is an amazing person to talk to. I want you to enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying it. Put your questions in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end. And now, on to this week's guest. Jenna Blum is the New York Times #1 internationally best-selling author of the novels, Those Who Save Us, The Storm Chasers, The Lost Family, and the memoir, Woodrow on the Bench. She is the co-founder of this very platform, A Mighty Blaze, which she started back in the very first week of the pandemic. She earned her MA at Boston University in creative writing and has taught workshops for Boston University Grub Street Writers, A Mighty Blaze, and numerous other institutions over the last 25 years. She also cracked the list of Oprah.com's top 30 women writers at work today. Her latest book is Murder Your Darlings. It is a cheeky, sly, heartbreaking literary thriller about a doomed romance and a serial killer. Karin Slaughter said, quote, authors and book tours, stalkers and deadlines, horrid men and ice-cold revenge, Murder Your Darlings will have you cracking up while you're checking under your bed. And I would just say one last thing before I bring Jenna in. There are still tickets available. There's still space available at the Lenox Hotel tonight. If you want to go and be at that book launch, I will be there. Jenna will be there. It's going to be an amazing night. So come out tonight to the Lenox Hotel. And now, without further ado, Jenna Blum, welcome to The Thoughtful Bro.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Well, you should be you're welcoming me. This is like your thing. You built A Mighty Blaze, and I am just honored to serve at your behest.
Thank you for being on the Blaze, Mark, T-Bro. Notice how well-behaved I'm being. Mark is so concerned that I might be ill-behaved because he and I are really good friends. But I'm not. I'm being really, really good.
This is this stilted, stiff tone is really, it's working. It's a change. I like it.
Yeah, isn't it scaring you? Because you're like, what is coming?
Yeah, exactly.
What is coming?
It's like the kettle is about to blow. All right. So, Jenna, I am so happy to be here today. I mean, I have been your friend through the, from soup to nuts, from the very kind of first inception of this book, talking to you about it in its roughest form when it was only an idea. I've read several iterations of this book. I've seen how it's progressed. I know how much you have loved writing this and what a ride it has been. And I would just say there's so many things to like about this book. I love the style of it. I like the ending. I like the humor in it. There's a lot of great tragedy in this book as well, which we'll get into. But I would say the thing that, rereading it over the weekend, the thing that I like most about it is it shows the full range of your personality. And as your friend, I just love to see it. We all know you as this kind of wisecracking, mischievous, ne'er-do-well kind of person. And yes, you. And this all really came through in the book in a way. I feel like your other books are amazing, but that side of you that's so, jokey, really came through here. And I was just so happy to see it.
Thank you. Is that a question? Do you have a question for me?
Oh my God, what is wrong with you? All right.
I'm just so excited. I'm like, when are you going to ask me some questions so I can talk? I'm so excited. Mark told me I have to be well behaved, so I'm being well behaved. But I mean, you guys, when you read this book, you will realize it's not a very well behaved book. I appreciate you saying. And I just want to shout out people who are on this podcast today and watching and listening. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. And thank you for all the social media love and all of the emails and calls and texts as I launch this ill-behaved new baby out into the world.
There's a quote in the book where Sam Vetiver is the name of the heroine of this book. She says, most authors hated tour, but Sam was not one of them. She often thought she wrote books in order to go on tour. And I know this is a thought that you often have about yourself. Is that how you're feeling now? Are you feeling psyched to be about to go on tour?
I am psyched to be going on tour, actually. I have so much tour stuff and swag that I was posting about today. It enabled me to buy a lot of things. Like it enabled me to buy cover t-shirts and stamps, like signing stamps that have little rabbits on them. I'm sure Mark will explain why everything I own now has rabbits on them, and book drink stirrers and tattoos, temporary tattoos for my reader that say things like "Don't suffer, fuckwits." Sorry for anybody out there with delicate sensibilities.
Sorry for any fuckwits out there.
Sorry, fuckwits. I'm not suffering you anymore. And also, somebody sent me a Murder Your Darlings sippy cup that I might fill with bourbon on my tour. Writer's Tears bourbon, of course. I still don't know who sent me this, but thank you. So, I mean, yes, it's true. And more seriously, writing a book is an endeavor that requires you sitting in a room, like this room, for instance, and writing and writing and writing and writing. And you're alone or with people in your Zoom room, which I had the privilege of having. But I do this because I love to go out and connect with readers in person. And as of tonight, I get bounced out onto the road where I'll be bouncing around until at least mid-May, and then after that as well. So come on out and see me, folks. It is my favorite part.
Yeah, just go to jennablum.com. You'll see her whole tour is listed there, and encourage you to see her tonight or any other time. It's always a good time. So Jenna, why don't we, for those who have not read the book like me, give us a thumbnail sketch?
Yes, thank you, Mark. So Murder Your Darlings, as you know, as the book Zaddy, and you guys, Mark knows this book as well, if not better than my agent, my editor, my interlocutor for this evening. Like he was there at this book's inception. Murder Your Darlings is about a mid-career female writer named Sam Vetiver, aka me. She's a very meta character. So if you guys want to know anything about what my writing life is like, you can just read this book and you'll know exactly every single little thing down to the eyelash detail. Sam Vetiver is on tour, coming off tour for her fourth novel, which is a historical fiction. And she's on contract and deadline for her fifth novel, and she's totally blocked. She hates the fifth novel. And she's also a year out of a divorce and feeling a little lost at sea and a little vulnerable. And she surprises herself by thinking, I would give this all up if only I had somebody to share my life with. And lo and behold, into her DMs slides the very stratospherically successful, incredibly charming, very charismatic author William Corwin, who says, my dear, I have read your first book and your last book, and will you have dinner with me while I'm on my own tour for my new novel, All the Lambent Souls? And Sam and William start a romance. Bodies start to pile up around them in the literary world. And Sam, who's from a trauma background, is forced to question, is it William? Like, can William be as good as he seems to be? Or is it one of his numerous female stalkers responsible for the murders, including a very scary, determined stalker named the Rabbit?
Wow. What a setup. You say that Sam is, she's blocked at the beginning of the book and she's sort of like disillusioned with her career. You are one of these writers that has a very long cycle between books. You know, you're not like a book a year, 2 books a year type person. You put out a book and then you kind of go into hibernation. Then, you know, it's maybe 3-4 years before another book comes out. Is that something that you struggle with? Writer's block, coming up with new ideas, just in the way Sam is? Yeah,
good question. I don't struggle with writer's block per se, but I do take a while to ideate books because I'm going to be writing that book for 1, 2, 3 years and then promoting it. And so it has to be an idea I really love. So even as of right now, I am rolling a bunch of ideas around in my head like marbles. They're all thrillers. And my hope is by the time I come off my tour in a few months, I will know which one is most persistent to write about. And then the other will have like rolled off into mouse holes in my brain. I'm very excited to be working on thrillers, and I hope to compress the time between books. I think writing thrillers makes it easier. And by the way, I just saw a friend of ours, Sharon Person from Minnesota, saying hi, and big shout out and love to everybody in Minnesota. Y'all know that my mom is from there. My grandma, my great grandparents helped settle that state, and what is happening there politically. Sorry to hijack Mark, but it is freaking horrific. So I just wanted to say hi to all of my friends there, and please know that everybody in this country is watching and we're all with you.
Thank you for saying that, Jenna. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, about the political climate. We'll save that till later in the interview. But, just to get back to like this book and its inception, Sam in the book in a very meta way, like you also, is somebody who is like known for writing historical fiction. She then decides that she might consider writing a thriller in the book. And I know this was a big question for you about if you would do that. So I guess that's the big question. It's like, why someone who has been a best-selling author in a certain genre, why did you want to switch it up?
Yeah, why? Why did you do this thing? Why?
Yes.
I think that that books choose the author as much as the author chooses the books. I think a lot of us probably are working on multiple ideas at the same time, or at least rolling them around in our heads. I know Mark does this, and most authors I know are playing like multiple pianos with each hand. And I feel I've got mixing all my metaphors today: the pianos, the marbles.
That's good. I like that one.
Good. Okay, that's good. So I was working on historical fiction, much like Sam in the novel, and it was a great idea. And my editor loved it. My agent loved it. And it was terrible on paper. You know that saying, good on paper. It was not good on paper. It was incredibly wooden. I would finish a scene and back out of it and think that was a competent scene in terms of its blocking. But like, what is the point? Like, what do the characters want? And I had the Darlings idea percolating in the back of my mind. These two writers who get involved in a book that was about a lot of publishing inside baseball. And then there are these murders that happen. And it was terribly scary, as you know, for me to go out on this kind of writerly limb. I have an audience of people who love historical fiction that I've built up over the last 24 years. And I was really afraid that when I brought the book to my agent, that she would be like, Jenna, you guys all know my agent is French. And she'd be like, Jenna, I cannot sell this. It is a bad idea to make a pivot in your career at this point. And that's what her counterpart, whose name is Mele, says in Murder Your Darling. She's like, you cannot do this. My agent actually was like, I think this is the smartest thing you have ever done.
Really?
Yes, because writing the historical fiction required me to use a specific kind of narrational voice that was hopefully elegant and a little austere and very controlled. I mean, I'm writing about the Holocaust and diaspora and mental illness. I can't be like, But in Murder Your Darling, she was like, now, Jenna, you have stepped into your own true voice. You have stepped into your empowered voice. You are no longer hiding behind 1940s clothing. And I think she was right. And it was such a joy to write something contemporary, the way people really talk. And I think it gave it a little bit of extra pop and a little bit of extra liveliness.
Yeah, there's so Sam's like one of the book is very funny, and like Sam's previous books, I'll just read you some of the titles of Sam's book. The Gold Digger's Mistress, The Sod Buster's Wife, The Sharecropper's Daughter. Like, are you trying to say something about with that particular formulation of titles? Is there something you're trying to say there?
I had so much fun with the titles in the book, like the titles within the title. Yes. And the rabbit, actually, the stalker character who's following both Sam and William, comments on this. It's all of Sam's books have these titles that have the possessives in them, like a woman's not worth anything unless she's somebody's wife or daughter. So you will see when you read the book, if you do me that honor, that all of Sam's books have those awful titles. And then William's titles are completely different. William's titles, which also give me great joy, like great pleasure, were The Girl on the Mountain, not that I've memorized these, The Girl on the Mountain, You Never Said Goodbye, which is obviously a tear-jerking romance, The Space Between Worlds, Medusa, a retelling of the classic tale, and All the Lambent Souls. There's not a wife or a daughter in there.
Right. Quite literary, quite award-winning style titles. This book, it's a lot of fun, and it's like a phrase, an adjective that we sometimes use amongst ourselves is trope-tastic. There's a lot of like tropey fun in this book, and it's like there's been some books out there that are like kind of cover like this sort of micro genre, which is like kind of serial killer-ish suspense thriller, but set in the literary world. I'm thinking about Yellowface, The Plot, the Carolyn Kepnes books. You, to a certain extent, are literary thrillers in that sense, like a literary thriller. I love this genre, and I guess what I'm just wondering for you is, what did you see in this genre that like totally like was like catnip to you?
I think I've been reading psychological suspense my entire life. Like at first, and I just wrote this piece called The Pivot for the Strand magazine about this, about how it was to pivot from writing historical fiction to writing thrillers. And at first I didn't think that I had the chops. I was like, I don't read mystery. I don't read thrillers. I'm not qualified, therefore, to do it. And then once I started writing Darlings, I was like, oh, I actually have been reading thrillers my entire life. I've read Ken Follett. I read Alan First. Most of all, I read a lot of Stephen King growing up. And you guys might have heard me say this on other interviews. Like Stephen King is one of my idols because he knows how to tell a great story. But I don't care about the horror in Stephen King. I care about people being put in terrible situations and then having the heat turned up and how they react, and people doing bad things. And why do people do these bad things? And that to me is always the question, whether I'm writing historical or whether I'm writing thrillers. Thrillers give the reader the expectation that people are going to do bad things and explore why those people are doing those bad things. So I think it actually fits my personality a little bit better to be working on thrillers. Historical, you could recreate a situation for a reader and ask them to participate, and the reader learns something by osmosis. But thrillers, you really are looking at people doing bad shit and why they do it. And so I absolutely love that.
Another thing that I loved about this is like the amount of voyeurism in it. I didn't notice it as much until this run through, but I mean, the book begins with an extremely raunchy act and also somebody spying on it. And I was just, that scene is so great, but there's like so many scenes, sort of Hitchcockian, like the amount of spying and like people kind of like in somebody's closet while something is going on in the house, and like they hope they're not found, and if they're found out, they're going to die or whatever. I don't know. That's one of the many trope-tastic elements. But I did want to just I'll also ask you a question about the raunchiness of the book. I mean, it begins with this like totally wild sex scene. And I mean, this is not a spoiler. This is like the first thing the reader sees on the page, and it's extremely funny. And there is somebody sort of reported from the point of view of somebody who's kind of spying on it. And I guess my question to you is, first I wanted to ask you about like why you like writing sexy. Your other books have a lot of sex in them too. I think it's something you're really good at. And I just wanted to ask you, like, why is that kind of a feature in all your books? Why do you like doing it so much?
I'm putting this clip on my dating apps right there. You heard it here, people. I am good at this. I am good at it. It's funny. My mom once went to a book club in my stead in Florida. I couldn't get to the book club because my plane was delayed. And so my mom went, and one of the women at the book club said, "Why is your daughter so obsessed with writing sex?" I literally don't remember what my mom said because I was so mortified thinking about my mom having to answer that question. But it is true. Like, there's a lot of sex in my books. The first book is basically X-rated. I just told my niece today she's not allowed to read it till she's 24, and she can't read this book until she's 25.
My God, you can rent a car before you can read a Jenna Blum book.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I should put that on my book as a sticker. I think that sex always features in my books because adult people have sex, and it's not just there for the titillating aspect of it or to be, oh my God, what is the word? Sorry, my brain just shorted out. It's not a superlative thing. It's there because it says something about character and the way human beings relate to other people. So it's not there just to like be some sort of peep show. It's there because it will demonstrate something about the characters in the book and how their psychology is formed and how they express themselves physically. Since I don't do sport ball, I have to do something in these books, right? So in this book in particular, there's a lot of sex in it because William uses it as a sort of honey trap or a thirst trap to get women into his life for reasons that you'll realize as you read the novel. But that's how he relates to people first and foremost, is he draws them in sexually. So that is indeed the first thing that we hear. And we hear it from the rabbit's perspective. She is spying on William and Sam having sex.
And I appreciate all the psychological angles to sexual encounters in this book, but like strictly from like a craft perspective, tell us, like, give us when you're reading other people writing about sex, what when they're doing it badly, like what strikes you? What is like poorly written sex scenes? And then also, like, what do you think is writing a great sex scene? There was another author who came on Mighty Blaze one time, and she said, every sex scene I try to write with 3 different senses, like a sense of touch, sense of smell, sense of sight, whatever, just 3 different details. That was like her. It was Diane Gabaldon. That was who it was. Like 3,
oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, like 3. That was her tips. Like, do 3 different senses, and that's like helps you write a great sex scene. If you were going to answer kind of what makes a bad sex scene, what makes a good sex scene from a writer's perspective, what would that be?
Well, it's hard to compete with Diana Gabaldon. So thanks for that. I'm not sure that I have pro tips and hacks. I think that writing a good sex scene really requires you to be in the character's skin when you're writing it. Even when we have this voyeuristic moment at the beginning of the book with the rabbit listening to Sam and William having sex, like we're hearing it from her perspective. And so she has a running commentary on what's happening. And it tells us as much about her as it does about the activity that's happening. And so any character is going to really filter the experience through his or her own physical sensations. And that might be auditory, or it might be tactility, or it might be a sense of smell, or it might be none of those things because that person is in his or her head completely. So I think the most important thing is to be true to character. The other thing is I think a lot about language when I'm writing sexual scenes. And true story, I think you might know this, Mark, but hopefully nobody else on the Blaze knows this before now. My first job out of college was writing the letters for Penthouse. So all of those letters that are like, dear reader, I never thought this would happen to me, but blah, 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 blah. Like, those were written by me as a 21-year-old college graduate because I really freaking needed a job. And I was an English major graduating into a recession. And it really taught me about the value of like, what verbs do you use for this? And what adjectives and adverbs do you use for this? And like, quite honestly, like, you're laughing, but it does make a difference. Like when you're writing the Penthouse letters, you just put it all out there. People are there because they want to be turned on. But when I'm writing fiction, there are synonyms for things that I will use so that I don't make it cringe. Like tonight, I am going to my launch. I am going to read the prologue. I've been practicing this. It's a freaking risky pearl clutching thing to do because I'm asking an audience of people who may or may not know me to listen to 2 of my characters having sex. And I'm actually replacing some of the language for public consumption because I don't want people to feel like, oh my God, I don't know these people. This is really cringy. And so there's a way for me to sort of turn down the dial on some of the language so that people are more comfortable.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Like, I wonder if when you were writing for Penthouse, which I would imagine is largely a male audience, like, would that have been turned up a little bit toward a male audience versus this is turned down? I don't know. One day that will all be explained in your opening essay to the collected Penthouse letters of Jenna Blum, which will be published and in some nice leather-bound book. All right, moving on. There's bigger things, bigger fish to fry here. So, you know, the engine of the book is this romance, and it's a story about a woman who falls in love with a bad man. And, Sam describes herself as unbearably lonely. And this is a story in a lot of ways about women who make bad choices in love and are used in relationships. And I know this is something that you really just wanted to talk about. I mean, like sort of the essential question, why do women generally, why does this woman, but also all women, why do they make the mistake of falling in love with a charming bad man? And I just kind of wanted to open that up for you.
Yeah, everybody loves those bad boys, right? And also bad girls. It's not a gender specific thing. I'm hoping that the book, for all of its trappings of literary inside baseball, and believe me, if you want to know what it's like to be a writer at any stage of your career, you can read this book, and I am pulling no punches here. So I hope that is a joy. And it also, I hope, is funny. Like, I thought it was hilarious. I laughed the entire time I read this book, which is also something I did not do when I was writing historical fiction about. So, but for all of that, the heart of this novel is really that question, like, why does Sam forsake her own identity? And why is she even willing to bargain it away in the beginning of the book to be with somebody she can share her life with? And I think that's kind of an essential human question. Like some people are okay on their own and other people really would prefer to be in some sort of domestic partnership. And Sam is one of those people. And there are degrees of that. And somebody who comes from a trauma background, as in fact all of my narrators do, is going to have a harder time forming a healthy relationship, a healthy partnership. So I really wanted to explore that taken to the extreme, which is what Sam does. And, you know, is William a bad man? Isn't William a bad man? I will let the reader make that decision. Like when we meet him, we're not sure. Like maybe he's just super charming. Maybe some people just be that way. And that's the question Sam is asking for the first act of the book. Like, is he actually a good guy? And I'm just being overly suspicious and overthinking things. But the question really is, when he starts to treat her in ways that anybody would agree are not kind, why does she double down?
Yeah.
And like that kind of codependency and that kind of saying like, it doesn't matter about my life. I'm just going to do what you want because I don't want to lose this thing. Like I really wanted to explore that. I think most readers either have been in that situation or know somebody who is like that. And so either you want to shake that person or you want to shake yourself and say, why? Like, why are you doing this? And I wrote the book in answer to that question.
Yeah. I mean, you define codependency in the book as like anyone who's ever concentrated on another person's life instead of their own. And I know that like that was sort of, you know, there's a codependency group in the book. This is sort of a big kind of issue to the extent that the book is not just like pure popcorn, ice cream sandwich entertainment. This is one of the issues that it gets into. What is the message? You know, if you could be so ridiculous as to have you boil it down to a message, but like, what do you want to say about codependency in this book?
Codependency is hard. Codependency, like any maladaptive behavior that you usually take on when you're a little kid to protect yourself in some way, and it gets you through life and you survive using that behavior. Like, okay, I'm going to like put somebody else's needs above my own or somebody else's wants and desires above my own. Maybe that helped you survive. And it's a really hard pattern to break, even if you're conscious of it, even if you're working on it. Like the most recent Elizabeth Gilbert book, like all things run to the river, or the river runs, or the runny river, or I forget what it is called, obviously. But is a lot about this also taken to the extreme. And there are many things in that book that I actually take umbrage with. But one of them is not the fact that at the end, she joins a codependency group and a number of sex and love addict groups, like Sam's codependency group in Murder Your Darlings. And then she kind of turns into somebody we can relate to a little bit better, I think, across the board. And Sam herself says, this may be a lifelong habit that I need to watch. Like any addict who's addicted to a certain pattern of behavior, you're never cured. But you can become aware of it and make different choices. And that is what I hope for anybody who has ever been in an extreme codependent relationship.
There's also in the way that she thinks about love. And I think anybody who's ever been in love, wanted to be in love, knows this kind of longing, but for her, it's in a kind of extreme form, this a little bit of self-deception, you know, and there's a way that when she falls in love with this man, there's a lot of red flags there, or at least, you know, yellow flags, orange flags. And she is just kind of pushes through. And there's this wonderful quote in the book, which is from the end of The Sun Also Rises by Hemingway, where, you know, there's a love story in that book between this guy, Jake, the main character, and then Brett, the love interest. And Brett says to Jake, we could have had such a damn good time together. And then Jake says, yeah, it's pretty to think so, isn't it? And this whole idea of like, you know, chasing the pretty thing and like, oh, if only it could be that way. And you sort of know it's not, but you want to live in that on the other side of it's pretty to think so. Talk about that kind of temptation.
I was just thinking that's why we all read books, isn't it? I mean, except for the thrillers, where the pretty thing is that you're not actually the person in the thriller who gets slashed or put in a trunk or like in a, in a door in a basement or in the dark woods or something. And I think that's actually why people read thrillers and mysteries as kind of a survival guide and a there, but for the grace of God, go I guide. But like the other books that we read for escape and for adventure, like they take us away from our lives into it. Isn't it pretty to think so? Scenario. And I wonder if writers are especially prone to that. But there is actually a technical name for that. I found when I was researching the psychology of the characters in the book, especially William. Whatever you guys think of William, William is a malignant narcissist. And I know we throw the term narcissist around so much these days, to the point at which, like, somebody's in front of us in a drive-through and he takes too long to go through and you're like, you're a narcissist. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. It's really a set of character traits that is almost impossible to change, even if the person wants to change them. It's a behavioral psychological schema.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to change that behavior. And one of those traits is, wait, what were we just talking about? What was the question? It was about, I know what it was. Okay. One of those traits is love bombing. Yeah. So one of the things that narcissists do in the beginning of their cycle is to draw people in with love bombing and saying, like, we're going to have this great time together. Here's what our life is going to look like. I will bring you coffee every morning. I will bring you flowers every time you get off a plane. There's nobody better than you. You're the best thing since sliced bread, blah, 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 over and over. And they build this castle in the sky. You walk in, you open the door the wrong way, you sneeze, you blow your nose, you like have an eyebrow hair out of place. And they're like, you are disgusting, because you're human. That's the second phase of the narcissistic cycle, is disappointment. Then there's discard. They go boop and you're out. You're ejected from that air castle, the castle of beautiful dreams. And then they're like, should I have done that though? Then they reel you back in. Like, this is legitimately the narcissistic cycle. And we see William do this in the book, but I think he really love bombs Sam hard in the beginning of that book, in terms of like trying to draw her into their beautiful life. And she's lonely and he's legitimately lonely also. So it's very tricky. And
you have said to me, kind of offline, that the codependent woman and the narcissistic man make this like terrible, like peanut butter and jelly, awful shit sandwich combination. Like, why is it that the narcissist and the codependent person fit so terribly well together?
It's the perfect dance, right? I can't remember what I said to you, and I wish I could, because it was so genius what I said that day. This is what happens when we don't record our phone conversations. But basically, a narcissistic personality and a codependent personality are perfect for each other in a very awful way, because codependents give too much. They give at the expense of themselves. And I'm not saying this as a like, oh, it's good to be, caring about your friends or your community or whatever. I mean, they do things that we think are stupid. Like, oh, this really bad guy has moved into my house and he like killed my dog, but I feel so sorry for him, so I'm going to let him keep sleeping in my bed, kind of thing. Or he just needs some understanding and some love. Like, that's a codependent. A narcissist takes. And so you can see why these two personality types would fit together so well, because the narcissist is going to try to suck the emotional marrow out of anybody that person is with, male or female.
I know that, I mean, you've said already on this interview that this is a very personal book, and there's a lot of ways that Sam is like you as a writer. I don't want to, blow up your spot here, but I think it's, people could probably conclude that there's elements that you're drawing on from your personal life and kind of things you've observed about yourself and how you are in relationships. And I thought of you on Sunday night, the director, Chloe Zhao, the director of Hamnet. She got up and they won Best Picture for that. And she got up on stage and she said this like wonderful thing about art. And it reminded me of you and your approach to this book and the character of Sam. So just listen to this and then I want you to respond. The most important thing about being an artist is learning to be vulnerable enough to allow ourselves to be seen for who we are, not who we ought to be, and to give ourselves fully to the world, even the parts of ourselves that we're ashamed of, that we're afraid of, and that are imperfect, so that the people we are speaking to can learn to see themselves and fully accept who they are. I feel like that is, in one way or another, you've kind of expressed a similar thing about the reason why you make art, to show yourself to other people, kind of warts and all, so they won't feel so alone.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, very esteemed company like Diana Gabaldon and also Penthouse. We've got some like really great influences going on here. I have always written, and you know this, that my bottom line, my common denominator in all of my books is to help people feel less alone through the lens of fiction. And I hope that whatever book of mine somebody is reading, whether it is historical or it's my last book, Woodrow on the Bench, which was about the last 7 months of my old dog's life, or this book, which is about the writing life and the pressures and joys it extracts and puts on a person, that people feel less alone in reading that description. And this book is obviously closer to who I am. I'm perfectly happy to say to everybody again, like the things that happens to Sam in the book, the things that happen to her are not things that have happened to me, but her writing life is exactly my writing life, down to like what I eat on tour, what I wear, what I say before I go on stage, which is what I'm going to say, tonight before I go on stage. I say it every time. Like it's just a very specific portraiture. I mean, to the point at which I was on a different podcast at some point, and the interviewer said to me, she looked over my shoulder, and I was in my library then instead of in my study like I am now. And she said, "Oh, that's Sam Vetiver's fireplace."
Yeah.
And I said, "How do you know that?" And she said, "I read the ARC." And I was like, "Oh, right. I forgot I put my apartment in this book. So my apartment's in the book. Everything is in there." Yeah. So I really hope that showing some of myself honestly plugs into what my agent was saying about me stepping into my real voice and my real power here, as opposed to hiding it behind the corsets of the 1940s and the spectator pumps of the 1940s.
Yeah.
And I think that the codependency thing certainly is me. I have been in a number of relationships that were actually really great, and a number of relationships in which people were like, "What are you doing?" People who loved me who are like, "Stop putting your hand on the hot stove." And I was like, "But I love him though." And again, like, who cannot relate to that? Yeah. So I'm hoping that this vulnerability is a live wire that connects with the live wire that lives in all of us.
Yeah, it definitely is. And one of the ways that the book is such a live wire is the voice work that you do. So there is a kind of more standard narrative voice that goes along with Sam. And then you have that's like 1/3 of the book. And then you have also a first person narration from the rabbit and a first person narration from the point of view of William. And those were just absolutely hilarious. They were electric. I mean, I think one of the best things about this work is the voice work. With William, again, in the very first scene, this is like in the first couple pages of the book, no spoiler, but there is a very intimate encounter. And the very first words out of William's mouth to this woman are, "You are incandescent right now," or something like that. But just, people always talk about the kind of work that voice does. And like for writers out there, there is a constant kind of cautioning against thinking that a certain vocabulary or a certain kind of like dialect or kind of verbal tick is the thing that you need to have a voice. No. What you need to have a real voice is a voice that carries emotion and that reveals psychology, is just something that is, just that, like something that is showing you something about the character and how the character sees the world. And to me, the idea that this man with this woman in that particular scenario would say, "You are incandescent right now," just sort of tells you everything you need to know about what like a pompous, fatuous person this is, and sort of that they're up to no good. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a moment to talk about not just William, but like the rabbit and like how hilarious the voice of the rabbit is, and kind of what fun you had writing these first person voices, which I feel like was sort of a breakthrough thing for you on this book.
Thank you. Yeah. And by the way, William says to Sam, when they're boinking and the rabbit is listening to them, and he's like, "You're incandescent." And everybody's like, "What a tool."
Yeah, I know.
And the rabbit is like, "What a tool." Like she's hiding in the bushes going, "What a tool." I cannot even believe what a tool this man is. Anyway, I was greatly surprised by both the rabbit and William's voices in this book. I was writing my third person character, Sam. She was supposed to carry the whole book as the heroine, and her voice is a lot like my voice, but it is third person. And then the rabbit came in, and I want the rabbit to be like Susan Isaacs. Do you guys remember Susan Isaacs? She wrote this book called Compromising Positions, a book called Shining Through. She was very big in the 80s. She writes this very she was kind of like pre-Jennifer Weiner. She's one of Jennifer Weiner's heroes. She's very plain spoken. She's like the person who's going to come in to your kitchen, sit down, have a cup of coffee with you, and be like, "Oh my God, this fucking guy. I cannot believe this fucking guy last night. He was peeing in my bushes again. What am I going to do? I would shoot him if I could." Right? That's the rabbit. And when I first wrote her, I was actually like lying on my couch feeling sorry for myself during a rainy holiday. And I thought, what if I tried a scene from the rabbit's point of view? And I went into my study and I wrote what became the prologue of the book without any changes. And it was like sticking my hand in a freaking socket.
Oh, yeah.
And he's first person. And it's the first person voice I've written since grad school, when I was then never allowed again to write in a first person voice because like my grad school director spanked me for it. He was like, you need to develop your own voice. You can't do this other people's ventriloquism. So there's the rabbit who's big saying like, F you, dude. And then I was going to write Sam the rabbit, Sam the rabbit, Sam the rabbit, and them commenting kind of on each other's activities, like in the affair. And then about a third of the way into the book, when I was starting part 2, William decided he wanted to come in also with his fatuous ass $25, words, never a normal word when a $25 word will do. And his like oozing sexuality and charm and narcissism. And he came in and I called my editor and said, I need to have a conversation. I'm going to throw you a curveball. I would like William to narrate the second part of this novel, because I think then we will know better what kind of person he is, and we'll know that Sam is, what kind of predicament she's in here. And my editor was like, I think that's genius and you should do it. And I did. And William is like my favorite, maybe my favorite. William and the rabbit are neck and neck. Like, I've never had so much fun writing characters ever. Yeah. And they're not me in any way, like they're just not me. They're just these lightning rod voices that drew down other personalities and were like whoop onto the page. So great.
Yeah. I've got a very exciting portion of the interview that I want to get to. I have a lightning round for you where we're going to do some kind of like funny questions, and I just can't wait to get to that. Ooh, surprise. But before we move on from like the core contents of the book, I just wanted to say that like this is also a book that's like a love letter to the writing community, and how it's not just like the writing community and she has a coterie of friends just as you do. And Sam in the book has a coterie of friends, just as you do in real life in Boston. But, there's also, the rabbit is a bookseller, and it's also about like the love that Sam and you have for the book selling community and the publishing community. And, you dedicated this book to your agent, and there's this wonderful agent, and the publishers in the book. I mean, like it's the whole kind of writer ecosystem is in this book. And, you and I, for years, have talked about the crusade of being a writer. And I think the reason why that came about is because, I come from the business world, and I used to it was a real difficult job that I had. And, I'd sometimes wake up in the morning and I was like, I'd be so miserable thinking about everything I got to get done that day. And I would just say to myself, don't forget it's a war, and it's a war out there. And it's like, sort of like, you're only being caught off guard because you forgot that it's a war. And I said that to you once, and you're like, well, writing isn't so much a war, it's more of a crusade. So this is a sort of, the book is sort of in a phrase, a love letter to the crusade. And I just wanted to kind of like ask you how you see the crusade, and like, do you love the crusade yourself as much today as you ever did, or how is it changing?
I don't know, the crusade is a pain in the ass, honestly. It would be really nice if all of us who work really hard and are talented could just have $1 billion deals for every book, and also movie and series deals. That would be fantastic. And we all know it's not like that. We know a lot of talented writers who have a lot more trouble getting their work out there. It's a very romantic idea, especially in your teens and 20s, to think that you have to suffer to be an artist or a writer for your work. And I personally think it would be great to have an easy time putting your beautiful work out into the world. So the crusade is a total ass ache. However, I will say that it is the only thing in my life I have wanted to do, besides find loving, sustainable partnership like Sam, is to be on the crusade to put books into the world and have them well received, and have them well received, because the better received they are, the more people will read them. And that is the point. And when you're on a crusade, because it's a crusade and it's sometimes really difficult, you need your friends. And I think that's the one thing that the book doesn't do quite as much as I would like it to, is like Sam has this amazing coterie of writers who are the writers who work on The Blaze. They are the same writers who are from my writing workshop that's been going for 20 years. They named themselves, they all chose their own names except for Mark, who I had to name Jake because he wanted to be called Cecil B. DeChill. And I was like,
I wanted the novel's title to be The Life and Times of Cecil B. DeChill, but
no, I was like, I am not calling you Cecil B. DeChill in my book. No, your name is Jake. Okay. But everybody else chose their names nicely. Mark, But because Sam is so preoccupied by William in this book, and that is really the engine that drives the plot, like she doesn't see as much of her supportive friends as she could or should. And in fact, our producer today, Trisha Blanchett, is in the book as Tabby, and she has which is actually, I think, Trisha, I'm sorry, you wanted to be called Sadie, and I'm like, no, you're Tabby. So apparently I'm very autocratic, but she also has a part in the book when she speaks at William's support group for writers, because William is also very in love with his readers and the writing community and so on. And he has a group called the Darlings that is a support group for writers to come and talk about their very real crusade issues. Like, what happens if you have a career and then the winds change and it's all gone? And your books that used to be featured in a wall at Costco are no longer there, and you can't get an agent anymore or an editor. Like, that happens to people. In the book, it happens to Tabby. Sorry, Trisha, that's not Trisha's experience at all. But it's hard. And so I think you really need your people to get you through. And that's why Blaze is so valuable, and any writing community is so valuable. Like, we remind each other not only of like how important the crusade is and what the important things are about the writing life, but everybody's funny, and we all need some levity to make us laugh.
Yeah, I've said it a million times on this show, but I'll say it again right now that, like, for me, the most significant development in my career ever was becoming a part of your writing class, which opened the door to all the wonderful people in the Boston community. More significant than me getting book deals, than this podcast, anything. It was just getting entrance to a group of people that I could become friends with, a peer group. That was the most essential thing to sustain me in the crusade. So 100% with you on that. One more question before the aforementioned lightning round. We started off the interview and you mentioned what's going on in Minnesota. You and I were just having a chat about this the other day. This nation is going through a serious convulsion right now. I was reading something this morning comparing it to the Civil War. I don't think, as bad as it is, I don't think we're anything close to the Civil War yet. But at the very least, I think we're approaching a time of upheaval like the 1960s, which really would have been hard to predict, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But this is a very serious time, and it's becoming more serious by the day. And you and I were just having a chat about what it's like for you to put out a book that is like so good, so like the greatest thing to do on an empty Saturday afternoon is just read this book in one delicious sitting. And yet it's a book of almost more than any other book that you've written, a book of pure entertainment. It is so entertaining, this book, and that is really what you're trying to do and what you're succeeding at doing. But the question is, you, who I know is somebody who feels passionately about this country, passionately about what's going on right now, how do you feel about releasing a book like this at a moment like this? Tell me.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I know that on Blaze, we are no strangers to this. Blaze was formed as a crisis response organization. Like, we were formed in response to a pandemic. And so we're used to kind of functioning in times that are turbulent. I remember back in 2021 in the summer, we had just done this amazing like beach blanket reads thing that our on-air host Jenna Payon was going to host, and it was every giant name, and like Ellen Hildebrand was going to be on it, and Jen Weiner, and like I can't even remember now, but like these huge summer reads names. And George Floyd was murdered, and I was like, Jenna, we cannot, like, I'm sorry, we need to postpone the beach blanket thing because we need to be respectful of the zeitgeist. And of course she understood that. It was really hard. So sometimes your creative life and the culture in which you're swimming don't match at all. And I think like my friend Chris Bajalian, who's been on Blaze numerous times, we have a joke about this. One of his books was released on September 11th, 2001. He and I were literally on air on Blaze during the January 6th insurrection. And I got off that interview and I was like, why is my phone all blown up? And he was like, why is my phone all blown up? And then we were like, oh my God, holy F, So none of us are really strangers who have long track careers to releasing books in turbulent times. That said, I am on Instagram a lot right now and Facebook because I'm posting about the book. I want people to know about it. That's part of my amplifier and my megaphone. Last night, my pub day eve, I'm on Instagram and my feed is full of books, but also full of scenes from Minnesota, people getting dragged out of their cars at a Quick Trip where I used to get my gas. And I'm like, this is terrifying. So then I'm on Amazon, like filling my cart with like water purifying straws and sleeping bags that are, and knives I don't know how to use. And I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, this is going to go really well. If the apocalypse comes, I'm sure I'm going to survive just fine, And then I got really wound up and I took my dog for a walk and was texting with some friends and was just like, I feel much better being out of the house, being away from this maelstrom for a little bit. And it really made me think, this is a reality we live with now. We all live in a violent culture that is getting more and more violent. We all fear for our families. We fear for our safety. We fear for the country we love and its values. And I think it's really important that I can still take one night out of my life, or like a sequence of nights going forward, to say, here is a book that I hope transports you and helps you feel less alone. I hope this makes you laugh, because in the middle of all of this, we still deserve to laugh. We still deserve to feel connected to a character. We still feel connected to other people, and we need that. And it's not just a meme that you see on Instagram. Like, you really need to feed your human psyche and soul and sanity by connecting to other people and by laughing and by seeing beautiful language. And if that's not what books do, I don't know what does.
Well said. Well said. And I appreciate you taking that question. All right. So, Jenna, let's lighten things up here and go into a quick lightning round. Are you ready? Get on your tippy toes there in your seat. Here we go. Are you ready to give lightning round answers to these amazing questions?
Sure.
Okay, here we go.
Bring it.
What book have you read more than any other book?
The Stand by Stephen King.
What's the worst writing advice that you have ever heard?
You should give up and do something. Have a real job.
Okay.
Get a real job.
Your dream kind of book does what to you?
Makes me pat it at the end and thank it and cry a little bit and say thank you.
Oh my gosh. All right. Finish the sentence. My favorite thing in the world is a good book, a blank, and a blank.
A good book, a walk in nature with friends and my paddleboard and my dog and a grilled cheese sandwich and coffee.
Stop. There were 2 blanks, not 6. Okay, keeping going. When I say AI, you say?
Who, me? Who dat? Who dis? Like, new phone, who dis?
Okay, just gonna leave that there. When I say book unboxing, you say?
So freaking boring. And everybody go watch my book unboxing video, which was not boring. Thank you.
Okay. When I say the future of publishing, you say?
Belongs to us.
If you're having a great writing day, what is the great writing dance that you do?
I know you can hear that on the podcast, but like, I'm waving my hands around. And Mark knows, because there have been times writing this book when I have called him and either spoken to him voice to voice or left a voice note saying, I just finished writing The Rabbit, or I just finished writing William, or I just wrote this great scene. Like, that is the equivalent of my dance, is like that grunt that I make when I'm either really happy or really indignant about something. I'm like, oh my God, it was so good. It was so like,
It's so funny that you said it, because my very next lightning round question was, when you write the perfect sentence, what sound do you make? Okay, yes. Got it. All right. And the last lightning round question is, complete the sentence. The hill I will die on as a writer is?
Oh, as a writer. Oh, interesting. Writing really good books.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hard to do that. I will die writing really good books, and also defending other people's really good books and getting them out into the world. It's important.
Okay. At the risk of extending the lightning round, so what is a really good book? Define really good book.
A really good book is a book that has a story that means you can't put it down, but also there's a lot of attention paid to the language, I think. But mostly and characters that feel real, like characters who you carry with you afterwards, a phrase that you might remember, and one that has an actual ass story.
Amazing. All right, let's take some audience questions before we run out of time here. This is from your fellow Mighty Blaze co-founder, Caroline Levitt, the great author. Caroline, so great that you're here today. She says, I want to know, how scary was it to venture into switching gears and writing a thriller?
Super scary. Hi, Caroline. I love you. My Blaze sister forever. Blaze would not exist without Caroline and everybody on this call. So Caroline, and Mark knows this too, because he was in writing workshop at my house when I got the email from my agent saying, yes, we can proceed with this thriller. I'd sent her 100 pages, but I was really worried about it. And I was really worried that I was shooting my career in the foot by doing it. But I hope that my agent is right, and she tends to be right, saying that it was the smartest move I've ever made.
Amazing. All right. One more quick audience question. This is again from Sharon in Minnesota. She says, I love that Karin Slaughter blurb. Have you two ever met?
Great question. I have not, Sharon. My editor managed to get that incredible blurb. The authors in book tour, Stalkers and Deadlines, Horrid Men, and Ice Cold Revenge. Murder Your Darlings will have you cracking up while you're checking under your bed. And I was so grateful to Karin Slaughter, who, as we all know, is a megastar. Like, she's a supernova in the thriller world. Like, to take her time to read the book and give a blurb to a newbie thriller author was beyond generous. So now I'm even more her fangirl on Insta and follow her around like a stalker. But I loved, especially in that quote, that she mentioned the cracking up part, because I really do hope people find this book is funny as well as scary.
Yeah, I actually saw way back, maybe a decade ago, I saw her speak at that thriller event, BoucherCon. And her vibe is totally this book. I mean, I thought that was about one of the funniest talks I've ever heard a writer give. And I had just sort of known Karin as being, this thriller writer, but she is like a stand-up comedian. She is totally hilarious. So it's a perfect fit for this book, which is also so funny. All right, well, folks, we're going to wrap there. The book is Murder Your Darlings. You're going to be hearing a lot about this if you're a follower of The Blaze. It is so great for all the reasons that we said. It's the kind of book that you just tear through, and it's the kind of book that I think is written in the spirit of, someone who has spent her whole career trying to write great books that people love. And she's just written a book that is so lovable. It's so lovable. I had a very similar reaction when I finished reading it. I kind of patted it and I'm like, This is, for those on the podcast, this is me affectionately and with admiration patting the cover of a book. All right, Jenna, last question. You know it's coming. Imagine the ideal reader for Murder Your Darlings. They finished the book just as I just did, this ideal reader. And they look out the window, they put the book in their lap, and just describe in a phrase or even a single word, how does that reader feel?
I've heard you ask this question so many times and even read the piece that you wrote about it, and I forgot that it was coming.
I knew you'd forget too.
I did forget. I did. What is the word equivalent of what you and I just both talked about, where we pat the book with love and admiration? I guess this isn't quite the right word, but like somewhere between tenderized and tenderness. Like, I want that person to feel tenderized by the process of reading so that they feel a little bit more open, but then also feel more tender toward the world because the book has allowed them to do that.
Wonderful. Such a great note to end on. Jenna, thank you for all you do for the writing community. Thank you for founding A Mighty Blaze. Thank you for writing this book. Thank you in advance for the next book you will write. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you for being the book zaddy, Mark, as well as the thoughtful bro. Guys, this book would not exist without Mark, and Blaze would not exist without you. So thank you again for watching and for reading.
All right, folks. We'll see you next week on Thoughtful Bro. Thank you again. The book is called Murder Your Darlings by the great Jenna Blum. Go out and buy it. It's out today. Bye, everybody.